Hi and welcome to Knit All the Things. My name is Laurel. I'm also known as West Maven on Instagram, Ravelry, and here. If you're new, this is a space where I talk about all the things I'm knitting, all the things I want to knit, all things yarn, just all the things. And if you're returning, welcome back, Knitting Bestie. I can't wait to catch up with you. In this week's episode, we are going to finally go through officially a review of the Memory Lane book, a book by Claudia Quintanilla. It just came out and I think you guys are gonna love it. And I have some big plans, knitting some more things out of this book and also a little progress on my Aureiliano sweater. I also have some progress on some kids knits that I've been working on, as well as all of a sudden, I have certainly felt the push or the motivation to do some of my winter knitting, like gift knits and stockings and all those things. So hopefully if you have been feeling the same way, we can take a look at all of that together. So grab your knitting, get cozy, and let's go. Okay, so let's talk about what I am wearing. Today I am wearing my autumn Alpine sweater. This is a pattern by Caitlin Hunter, and I knit it using Magpie Fibers Swanky Sock in the colorway Selkie. And then I used the Plume base in the colorway Harpoon, held with Les Garçons Yak Sock in the colorway Emma Stone. I really loved this pattern. It has a beautiful floral motif. It's very cozy. I put this on and because I was running around setting lights up and doing things for the podcast, I got really hot. But now that I'm like sitting and not like running around, it's fine. It is a little bit on the warmer side. The plume really does add quite a bit of warmth to this sweater, and I think it's really nice. It's also such a nice difference, and we can talk about a little bit. The plume has just some halo. It adds a little halo to your knits. While I've been knitting a lot of mohair, it is a lot of fluff and a lot of added density almost to your knits, where once this is held together and it's been just like, you know, in storage, but it's not like this big fluffy situation happening. The plume really does add a nice texture, but it also keeps your sweater from feeling like overly fluffy, if that makes sense. Also, I'm so sorry about my voice is a little funny today. I'm getting over being sick, so I sound a little funny. So with this pattern, she really had a really nice way of doing the collar and the cuffs. I really like how they have this ribbing, like a broken rib, and then this added little contrast color in the cuff, I think is a nice detail, and it's also in the hem. And at the time that I had knit this, I wasn't really sure if how I was gonna feel about it, but I actually really like it. The way the cuffs are done, it's kind of a rapid decrease right here, and so you do have a little bit of a balloon sleeve. I will say out of a lot of knits that I have, the fit of this sweater is one of my favorite fits. The sleeve length is perfect. The body length is perfect. There's also a high-low hem on the body, which is really nice. And I actually always appreciate that with sweaters. Sometimes I like to tuck in the front, but it's nice to still have that like visual line. And I just think it adds such a nice touch. I also will say this has a deeper yoke, but I think it's very flattering. It's not so deep where you can't lift your arm and then the whole sweater comes up by any means. It's just a slightly deeper yoke. And if that was something that did bother you, you could adjust and stop the colorwork shorter, or you could split early and then just adjust your colorwork just a little bit to account for having split early. That's really it. I would 100% knit another one tomorrow. I really enjoyed the process of this knit. The yarn is wonderful. I will say the Swanky Sock is a merino cashmere nylon blend, and there is a little pilling, which I do find with this yarn in general, but it is not so severe that it takes away from the sweater by any means, and it's easily shaved off. Yeah, that's it. I really like this one, and I have an episode or two about it, so I will link those below if you're curious more about this sweater. But yeah, I really enjoyed the knitting it. It was so nice I knit it twice, kind of. I also did the summer version of this sweater with the same motif, shorter sleeves, and a little bit different lace and detailing on the collar and the edging of that one. Last week, I was working on the Flax sweater for my friend, and because I was sick, I haven't been able to actually get her this cute little sweater. It is the Flax sweater by Tin Can Knits, and this was knit using scraps. I held 2 sock yarns together, and I just really loved how the marl turned out. I also started a second one for a second friend who's having a baby, and I did make some progress, but I did not finish it. I did, however, I'm very close to finishing up the body, and then I'll just have little cute sleeves to do, and that won't take very long. I'm marling 2 colors of Arwetta together, Filcolana Arwetta Classic, and this is the colorway 194. And this one is the colorway 268. They're just a kind of a royal purple and a lavender. And I'm really liking the way that they're marling together. It's a little bit different look than the other one I had. And I think, especially with a marl, having the garter section on the sleeves and the stockinette on the body really looks nice. It gives it just a little bit more interest. You could leave it out if you just wanted a plain little raglan. It's a great free pattern. I am using their app, and it's very simple. You just plug in what it is you would like to make. It gives you options whether or not you would like to start with the collar or not and come back and do that. There's options for short rows. I'm skipping the short rows to make the sweater kind of reversible, if you will. And it gives options for short sleeve or long sleeve. So those are the options you have on the look of the sweater. As far as knitting the sweater, there's 3 gauges that it gives instructions for and 3 weights of yarn. So maybe you are using a sport weight but knitting at a DK gauge or whatever. You have those options to look at as well. It's very simple, very user-friendly, and I highly recommend it. If you are knitting your first sweater, it would be great to use because within the app there's tutorials on how to do different things if you're unsure what they mean, or maybe you haven't done a long tail cast on before, or maybe you haven't done splitting for sleeves or whatever that is. So it has all of these various tutorials throughout the pattern to really hold your hand all the way through, and I really appreciate that. Also, a fun little side note, this was my first ever knitting bag that I purchased, and I got it at a local store. It's by Flower Pie. I think I've looked it up before, and I don't know if they still exist, but I really liked this one because it's kind of a zips down the middle, and it really is perfect. It's really good for socks, but for this purpose it works really nice too. Yeah, I just thought that was kind of a fun before times. Probably before I knit, definitely before I knit any garments. Maybe I might have knit hats with that bag. I think that's probably where I got it. Okay, moving along. I am knitting sweaters for my kids. Each year I knit them a sweater. This year I am using the Lyon or Lyon sweater by Petite Knit, and it is a raglan. Well, no, it's not a raglan. I'm trying to think of the style of this sweater. It'll come to me. We'll talk about it later. It is a top-down sweater. You start by knitting the back first, then you pick up and knit 2 front panels, then you knit, you knit 2 front panels, and then you pick up and knit around the shoulders, and then you knit back and forth for a while, and then you join in the round and start knitting in the round. And then you have raglan increases. So this is my oldest kid's sweater. He chose the colorways from Spun Right Round Pop and Poison Dart. and they are coming together quite nicely. I will say a really, really fun thing about kids is just the wild colors you get to knit with. Like with This Is My Background, or even this one. They're very subtle. Of course, I love these colors, but there's not anything quite like knitting with neon green with speckles. It's just a different sort of joy. So this has been really fun to knit, and I'm grateful that they chose these fun ones. I really was not sure about this purple and the green. I mean, I think they look nice together, but I was really worried it was going to be like hurting your eyes looking at it, just both bright colors, but I actually really, really like it a lot. It's hard to show on this needle. Oops, dropping things. But it really is fun. And it is not really done a ton of pooling, maybe right here a little bit. But I feel like having not helical knit or anything like that, the body is turning out really nicely. And with the stripes, it's going to add a little bit of grounding to the kind of wild piece that it is. And after I finish this sweater, I will start on my youngest son's same pattern, but different colors. So I've really enjoyed this. I kind of hope I have a little of some of these colors left so I can do a hat, even if it's just a couple stripes in on a different color hat. I think would be nice. So it's starting to get really chilly here in the mornings, and I know they would love to have a sweater to throw on, even if it's just till they get to school for now or during like recess in the mornings. I think it would be nice for them to have it. So I am focusing a lot on this, trying to get through them because I have two. I have two to knit. In the past, I think when I haven't been knitting anything else, these sweaters could take me about a week. But because I am knitting other things, they have taken a bit longer. Plus, just being sick, I had a couple of days where I did not knit anything, which is like super rare. I would say with like less than 5 days a year, I probably knit every single day, even if it's just for a couple of minutes. So a day of zero knitting is very, very, very rare for me. I just really like the construction. It's super fun to knit. Because of the way that the shoulder shaping is done, it really has a very nice fit. I feel like that is probably my favorite thing about this sweater pattern is just the fit in the shoulders. Just looks so nice and so sharp. Especially, I haven't knit this pattern yet for myself, although I have it. I'm very curious to see how the fit changes with someone with a bust or like a somewhat of a bust, because this as being a flat garment fits just gorgeously. And I'm really kind of curious to see how the same pattern would fit on me. So that is one that I'm considering casting on sooner rather than later. I have a few for myself options. One, I have like random one skeins of yarn that I thought I could just have a stripy version, like just many different stripes. The other thought is doing a mohair and fingering weight sweater of this, and then I can have a lot of different options there. Also with the Lyon or Lyon sweater, I really got a kick out of the comments last week. I had said that one of the things I don't love about petite knit patterns is the having to figure out my own yardage. And I know the math. Like, I get that she lists the yardage of the yarn that she's using and the amount of grams that you would need of that. My complaint was that I don't have the exact yardage. I have the amount of yarn that would be in the ball for the amount of balls that she uses, which is fine. And again, I know, like my kids, I need 3 skeins minimum of DK yarn to do their size, but it's always nice to see, like, if I was going to do a scrap version, like what I could use out of scraps and stuff like that. So I really got a kick out of seeing how many of you were like me that were like, oh yeah, mathing, not my favorite thing in a pattern, and how even some of you were like, wow, I've never thought of that because I've always known for my size, what I would need, or even that it's just not even something they look at in a pattern. So I always love all of our different perspectives, and I always just really enjoy kind of that aspect of podcasting, is seeing how you guys feel about things and how you're feeling about various patterns and just little items like that. Okay, so let's talk about my Aureiliano sweater. This is a pattern by Claudia Quintanilla, and it is from, drumroll please, Memory Lane, her newest book. So full disclosure, she did send me the pattern prior to publication for some preview knitting, and they are going to send me a book. I didn't get mine yet, so I actually ran down to my local yarn store and picked up a copy because in the future, not this episode, but in the future, we're going to do a giveaway and I can send one of you guys one of these books. So let's talk about the sweater first. This is the Aureiliano sweater. It is named after one of the characters, or I would say multiple characters, in the book of 100 Years of Solitude. It is a book by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And one amazing fun part about this knit for me was that I listened to the audiobook while I was knitting the sweater, and I really just enjoyed that aspect of it. Obviously, I knit and listen to things a lot, or I'll knit and watch things a lot, but it was kind of nice to reflect on how Claudia had picked the name for her sweater and all the different things, and listening to the story at the same time. It was fun. It was nice. It was a nice meditative way of knitting. I am using La Vietnamese mohair silk in the colorways Winterfell, Smoke, Direwolf, and Fog. And I am loving this knit. I really can't say enough nice things. Holding mohair double really creates a very lightweight sweater. Having a very simple but bold colorwork motif is really nice. I have really, really, really liked just everything about this. So I made a huge, I would say a huge mistake. Let's not sugarcoat it. It was a pretty big mistake, and I'll tell you why. I posted a picture of me wearing this sweater on my stories, and after I had finished exactly this amount of knitting, and I wanted to just double check, see how it was fitting. I was loving on this sweater and really enjoying it. And then I went to knit later on that evening, and as I was looking at my knitting, I thought, oh, this looks different, but I couldn't quite figure out what it was. So the closer I looked, I realized that in this motif right here, in between the little boxes of colors to the next color boxes, there is a plain knitting row. And for whatever reason, when I got to this motif down here, I decided to just put 2 in between each one. So it gave the illusion that I had changed gauge because of the way that it was looking. Like the motif itself looked much more spread out. And I sat with it for a while because I thought, okay, can I hide this? Is this something I can hide? And the solution that I came to was I had one more of these sections of colorful blocks left on the bottom of the sweater. I was like, okay, it would look super weird if I just left it and then went back to the original pattern, because you're going to have one weird stripe going on that looks like elongated compared to the rest. So what if I just try to make it look intentional and do a second one that's just elongated? Like, that would be my solution. And I thought about it a long time, and I thought, okay, to make it even more matching, I would also then on the sleeves have to do a couple of the regular and then the rest elongated to balance out, at this part in the sweater, all of them are going to be elongated. And I almost did that. I was real close. And I sent a message to my friend, and she's like, are you going to really be okay with that? And I thought about it even more because this has been not a slow knit, but it's not also been the fastest knit. Like, it's taken some time. And I thought, no, I'm not going to be happy with looking at that going, wow, I just made a mistake. So I guess we're going to have now a bunch of quote unquote mistakes to sort of try and balance it out. Like, that wasn't going to sit well with me either. So I ended up unraveling like this much of the sweater because I just couldn't live with that. And I also did it for one other reason. I was afraid that if I didn't undo it and redo it, that I only have so much of this Winterfell color. And as it stands, I will have enough to complete the sweater, but I won't have like leftovers by any means. I'm going to be towards the very end of what I do have. So I didn't want my sweater to run out of yarn because I made a mistake, because I was adding extra rows of that color into the sweater. So it seems so silly because it really was 2 rows that had to be removed, essentially. But I just had to reknit it just the way that it is. So I went back and I picked up all the stitches and then I unraveled double mohair. And because of the way that I had done it, the color work pieces, the contrast colors were easy because I had pulled them together and it was off of one ball. But with the Winterfell color, I had 2 separate balls going. So I actually did, I guess I didn't have to, but how I did it was I ended up actually, instead of leaving them together and just making like a small ball of that, I literally rewound them back into the 2 because I'm crazy. But anyway, it all worked out. I'm back to where I started a few days ago and we're going to continue on. It's going to be perfect. I have absolutely fallen in love with the sweater. And the other thing too is when I was thinking about whether or not I should unravel, I really have felt a lot of joy knitting this. So it really was just like, oh, I just get to knit it a little bit longer. And that's true. Like, I really have enjoyed knitting this so much. So that was my fail this week, but I fixed it. I think it would have probably been fine. Like, truly, if I was like just heartbroken and felt like I couldn't go on and continue, like rip it out, it would have been okay to have these a little bit wider at the bottom and just mirror it on the sleeves. I don't know how many sleeve stripes, because typically your sleeves are a little bit longer, so I don't know how many stripes that would have been on the sleeves, but I think it would have been okay if I did it that way. But again, I just was also afraid of running out of yarn, so I didn't want to risk having that happen. I'm so pleased with how this is turning out. The motifs are super fun. The sweater is fitting absolutely gorgeously. I am knitting a size 3 and I am knitting it with just a tiny bit more ease, I think, than recommended. So just because I know myself for a couple of reasons. One, I do like a non-tight fitting garment. And 2, I knew that with my previous all over color work knit that I've made, it ended up being a little tighter just from the color work itself. So I wanted to just really lean into, like, even if it's just on the like just a tad larger, it would be perfect. So that's how I chose my size. I talked a little bit about color choices if you are going to knit this. And if you look, let's look together. So if you look at Memory Lane, Claudia Quintanilla's book, and we'll look through this a little bit more after this, but if you look at the Aureiliano sweater, she uses a medium blue, an orange, a light gray, and a dark gray. And so when you're choosing colors for this, if you take a picture of this particular picture and you're looking at it, so if you take a picture of it and you switch it to black and white on your phone, it will look like the orange, the value of the orange and the value of the blue are the same, meaning that when you switch it to black and white, the orange X's on the blue almost disappear. So it just looks like those are missing when you switch it to black and white. So when you're choosing a color, if you want that same look that she has, you're going to choose a color. Those two colors, so your main color and your X color, are going to have to be closer in value. I couldn't exactly do that with this one in the same way because I picked such a dark main color. So this had to be lighter in order to see it at all, unless I would have done maybe like a bright red or something else. But because I wanted kind of monochromatic color work and then a dark color background, this is the way I did mine, which was a little differently. I did light gray, a medium gray, and a dark gray for my contrast color. But if I were to do this differently, I could have done maybe a plum for the X color, or maybe a deep wine color, or a dark, I think those would be like my options. I also think La Bien-Aimée has a really pretty color called Cocoa, which is like a chartreuse green, and I thought that would have been kind of cool in this color work as well, maybe for the X's. But I'm loving how this is turning out. I think it's a very wearable palette, something that I've been trying to focus on this year, and just in general, is choosing things that I know that I will wear. So maybe I can, again, like I was saying, it's really fun knitting these colors. If I were to go to pick colors for a sweater for myself, I wouldn't be picking these because it just wouldn't be something that I would wear or that I would like on myself. But it's fun to be able to knit for the kids and let them choose the wild and crazy colors. And then me look at like, okay, what do I not have in my wardrobe or what would add something? So that has been just so much fun. Okay, so let's talk about Memory Lane, a book by Claudia Quintanilla, and this is Embellish Knits to Cherish. And again, like I said, they are sending me a copy of this, and they also sent me a kit for the Aureiliano. I got it in this week, and I'm not sure exactly when I will make this, but I do want to make the original one because I think it is quite beautiful. So the original kit is using Ito Sensei mohair, and it is 60% mohair and 40% silk. And two things. My son saw these little tiny skeins of the yarn, and he was like, "Mom, those are so tiny." And it's true, but we'll talk about that in a second. So if you're unfamiliar with this yarn, it is really, really special. It has more silk than a lot of the mohairs. 40% is a lot more silk than a lot of them. So the yarn itself has a little bit more thickness than like maybe your average mohair. And it has fuzz, but it almost acts a little bit more like the harpoon, where there is fuzz, but it's not like the long strands of mohair, kind of like this. So it does have a little bit different kind of vibe to it, if you will. I think this sweater would also be very beautiful in a Surrey alpaca. Would be nice. So they sent me a kit. They gifted me a kit. And the original colors of the original sweater. Okay, so the original colors are carrot and billard and charcoal and smoke gray. And it is really such a beautiful, fine mohair. If you ever get to work with it, I would recommend it. I'm very excited to knit with this. And I'm really excited for a different vibe because to me, this one feels very winter, whereas this one feels very fall. And so I'm really looking forward to using this and making it, but it might just be a little bit in the future. So also thank you so much to Claudia and her team for sending that to me. Okay, so Memory Lane. It has so many gorgeous, gorgeous patterns. It's almost hard to decide where to start, but we have to start somewhere. So we talked about the Aureiliano. Let's look at the various techniques. So within this book, there is beading techniques, there's color work, there's crochet, there's embroidery, there's lace, there's adding a ribbon to your knits, there is baubles and color work, beading, embroidery, so many different techniques. And there you can use it to obviously make the patterns that are in the book. You can use this book as a guide to learning the various techniques on, like for example, here's a great one. So the El Naranjo is a beautiful colorwork sweater, and it has little beads at the points of the kind of leaves on the colorwork. And so you could take this, trying to not share the directions, but you can take this and you can use learning the various beading and adding beads to all of your knits. This, for example, I could have done little beads on the flowers. I could have had them in these little tiny motifs right here. I could have added them to the collar. There's a lot of ways in which you could add them into your knitting, whether or not you decide to knit the actual pattern. The patterns in the book are all very well fitting. They're very flattering. There is a collared sweater, the petite. So this is a beautiful collar, and then you have little, I think, crocheted edgings on the cuffs. There is a beautiful sweater that from afar looks quite just simple and elegant, but on a closer look, you will see that there is beautiful buttons to finish off the cuffs. So all these little details are just really, really fun, something special to add to your knitting, something that even if you are new to the technique is easy to learn. So there's a lot of different techniques in here. If you want to see the Maria, she has a colorwork motif with added beads, and there's just, it's just such a beautiful way to elevate your knitting. I really, really think that I would knit all of the patterns in this book. There is another all over colorwork sweater that is called the Azul, and it has this beautiful kind of crisscross colorwork motif. And this one in particular, I thought would be super fun to knit using scraps. I think it would be a really cool scrappy sweater. The gauge on this one is 26 stitches. So you could do fingering weight to a DK weight or like holding double mohair, but I really think it would be fun to make this a scrappy project, because you could make every stripe, like the darker colored stripes, a different color. You could, instead of all of the colorwork being blue, you could switch each stripe to have different colorwork and a different color. I think it could just be a nice, like, scrappy project that could be really fun and colorful. There's also 2 cardigans that are just so cute. This one is called the Rosa with embroidery around the collar, and the embroidery also has beads, and you could add them or leave them. And then there is this beautiful cardigan called the Concaste. And I think that's really great. So I think this could be my like perfect dark charcoal gray / black cardigan that's missing from my wardrobe. or even like a nice, beautiful navy blue. The gauge on this pattern is 26 by 36. So it looks like she actually knit this with a baby yak lace by Mayak, and it looks like she just used the lace. So it is a nice, like, lacy, this would even be a good summery type of cardigan, a more year-round cardigan. But there's so many different patterns. It's really, really fun to see someone's just massive amount of creativity in all that they do. I will say that there's probably a pattern in here for everyone. All of the patterns are size inclusive. This beautiful picture on the front is the wings sweater. It has a nice little color and beading and lace. And there's even this very cute little golondrina top that has like a nice little lightweight tee with some embroidery. I just am obsessed. So I feel like I would knit every single one of these patterns. And I really think that if you end up getting this book, that you will be probably referring back to it time and time again, because there's just so many little different techniques, so much inspiration. I'm really, really like to purchase books that are full of inspiration, even if you were like, oh, this is inspiring. I love this wings top, but I just don't know if I'm quite there yet. You can leave out the beads. You can leave out some of the embellishments if you're not into it, or if it feels overwhelming, but she does give such great directions, and I do think that you could pull it off. There's also this really fun top called the Frida, and I didn't realize it until I got the book, but these beautiful flowers, there's instructions on how to make these pretty ribbon flowers, which are just so fun. Like, I've never seen a knit like that. So it's just a really, really fun way to like imagine different ways of doing our knits, how we can embroider things, how we can just add a little bit. This one has beautiful embroidery of butterflies. There's another one. This is called the Monarcha. There's also the Dorada, which has butterflies of a different kind embroidered on the front. And she did a few different reels and stuff on Instagram, and this particular one, it honestly never occurred to me. I'm embarrassed to say, but I always see embroidery and think, oh, that's so pretty. Like, I imagine someone just going like, okay, right here, I'm going to stick something, and then like maybe having a template and, you know, embroidering something on it. Literally never occurred to me that you could make a template for the whole front of your sweater and then plan out, like a real person should plan out, where you're going to be putting things. It truly would have never occurred to me until I saw her sharing that on her Instagram. So I just, hopefully you guys love this book. And again, keep an eye out. I'm hoping to do a giveaway of some kind in the future. And also I wanted to thank you guys so much for being here, because honestly, without you guys interacting with my videos and being supportive of me, be my knitting besties, I wouldn't have opportunities to be able to review books and cultivate those types of relationships. So thank you. Two things. It's been crazy. So because it has been fall all of a sudden, and it's now the middle of September, I feel like it's towards the end of September, if I'm being honest, but I'm probably being a little over dramatic in that way. With all the weather changing, and in the mornings it's cooler, and just having that sense of winter is coming up very quickly, and it's going to really be like full on sweater season. I've been looking at what I want to cast on next. So I do want to cast on a cardigan coming up. I either am going to do the Eva cardigan by Petite Knit, or perhaps the Granny cardigan by Joji Locatelli. These are very different looks. And maybe I will do, if I have time this year, 2 cardigans. But I don't like to fully just knit, I think, 2 cardigans in a row, only because the flat knitting and so much purling can sometimes like hurt my hands. So I do want to make a cardigan. I don't know which one it will be. I would also be so happy with the champagne cardigan by Petite Knit. I really, really love mine that I have already, and I reach for it all the time. I think the best parts of that cardigan are the double knit button band, and also just the shape and fit of it is just really great. Eva cardigan also is nice. It has a different button band and it has kind of a similar plain Jane cardigan. It has that the ribbed collar. So I'm not sure if I'm gonna do another kind of plain cardigan or not, but if I do, those are the 2 patterns I'm looking at. Again, that button band on the Petite Knit, the double button band, I really think finishes it so beautifully that I am very strongly considering knitting a second one. But it's always nice to do different patterns, and I do have the Eva pattern in my library, so it just might be time to bust it out. Beyond that, beyond kids knits and all those things, I have been every year when it's November, I regret not having knit a stocking at some point during the year. I don't know what it is, but like it's so hard for me to plan that far ahead. I don't normally, but Jamie Lomax came out with the Holiday Doodle stocking. She came out with it a couple years ago, so this is not a new pattern. But because she has her book coming out in October and there's all the different charts and different things she has out there, I thought I could really make some very fun and unique stockings for my kids. And so this one has been on my mind as a pattern to cast on. And I guess I keep thinking, like, I keep trying to tell myself, it's not like a pair of socks. You do have to knit 2, one for each kid, but you could knit them so differently. So I need to get in gear and get this done. But it is certainly something that I put off, and then every year I'm like, oh, I wish I would have done this. We haven't done stockings with our kids yet because I've done a made-up advent that I make myself, and then we do that kind of in place of doing a stocking on Christmas Day. So I don't know. Let me know. Like, I did not grow up having Christmas, so every aspect of it is new and different to me. And so I'm always curious, like, was that a big core memory you had? Have you made stockings? Do you have a favorite pattern? It's definitely something I'm trying to like wrap my head around. I'm also trying to decide, because I feel like this is kind of like a little bit of an heirloom knit, what colors I want to use with it. Should it be something that makes me think of my kids? Should I pick something that's just traditional so that like 100 years from now, when they're old and pulling it out, it's going to have that just very classic look? I don't know. So if you have any tips or tricks on that, I would totally appreciate it. And because I haven't really read the pattern yet, I'm assuming that if I want to throw in a couple of her charts from other doodle packs and whatnot, it probably will be easy to swap those, I'm assuming. I also kind of wonder how, I bet you I've been putting this off forever, and I'll go to cast it on and it'll be one of those things that actually takes no time. And then I'll wonder why I put it off for so long. And if that's the case, then maybe I'll have a practice one and then we'll have the real ones. Who knows? So I'm excited for casting that on in the near future. Please hold me to this, guys. I really need help, like just getting this done, because it is something I want in it. It is something that's been on my mind for my kids, and I do really want to like have that I think it would be a nice thing to have made for them for now and in the future. That is all I have for the knitting piece of the podcast. I have been listening to a ton of audiobooks. I have finished, like I said, The 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I finished 0 Days by Ruth Ware. I am currently listening to Long Island Compromise by, I'll put the name on the screen right here. And I've just been listening to a lot of audiobooks. Right now, The Circle is on Netflix, and I've been watching that, binging that. And I also recently binged Chaos, which is on Netflix as well. And it has Jeff Goldblum, and I highly, highly, highly recommend. It's a great, fun watch and knit. So I am next week going to be reviewing the Lerky Bagger book, Knit It Out. So keep an eye out for that. And I'm also going to be working on a video for you guys for 12 fall knitting patterns that you are not going to be able to live without. So keep your eyes open for those. If we're not yet knitting besties, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and like this video because it tells YouTube that other fiber enthusiasts like yourself enjoy this type of content. Until next time, make some yarn magic. Bye.
Baby, you give me ice and fire. You're giving me wind and rain.